will not be, I will never separate from this petal until I die.
After the church decision was released, the nuns were instructed to destroy all materials connected with the apparitions.
I think this is what, it was 1 week that we were burning and burning.
Sinunog yung diary ko pati diary ni Mother Cecilia. Sinunog nila lahat.
Leaflets, books, novenas, everything. They were piles and boxes and boxes. You had to burn all of that.
We began burning, then after about a week or less than a week, Mother Jacinta got sick. And after that, the whole community helped in crumpling the paper first. It extended to about a month in all.
We as exorcisters, we had to burn our own pictures at saka yung petals.
You burned? What did you burn, sister?
Petals and pictures.
I see. What about letters? Did you ever have a lot of letters?
A lot.
So you burned a lot of petals?
Not a lot, but a good number. At saka yung pictures niya.
These were the pictures of the statue?
Oo, for Blessed Mother.
Even the convent at Haro, Iloilo wasn't spared. Unfortunately, a young nun had excitedly showed her precious petal to one of the Carmelite investigators sent by the Generalate in Rome. And soon afterwards, Sister Mary Tayamora was ordered to burn all petals and material connected with the apparitions at Lipa. She states that as she did so, a gigantic blue flame issued from the small pyre, expanded to the height of 4 feet, and lingered until everything was consumed. The statue of the Mediatrix was also ordered destroyed, but the nuns couldn't bring themselves to do so, and devised ways and means to save it.
The statue, we did not burn it.
It was kept. And then it was in a corner, and then it was covered with cloth.
But they put a heart at the center to make it look like Immaculate Heart. And they painted it blue.
There was a time, and then it was exposed in one of the rooms. And then afterwards, I think, when Monsignor Santos or somebody else came and said, do not do that, so it was kept again.
Strict silence was imposed on the Sisters of Carmel. They were never to speak of the apparitions again. To reinforce this order, they were told that if they spoke about it amongst themselves, they would be guilty of a venial sin, and discussing it with outsiders would constitute a mortal sin and possible excommunication. As shocking as this may seem to us now, one has to remember that this occurred in pre-Vatican II times. Much has changed since then.
In fact, our superior from Rome came to us and told about it, not to speak about it anymore. Even Monsignor Reyes, the one who died, he told us, he brought us to the choir and then summoned us and said, it is forbidden to speak about that Lady of Lipa. So we kept quiet about it.
By declaring an absence of supernatural intervention in the events at Lipa, the Church had, in effect, implied that the entire affair was a hoax, and thus brought down upon Carmel a deluge of public detraction. But among the thousands of devotees, there was shock, pain, disbelief, and anger.
I don't believe in that.
I remember being very deeply hurt by all this talk.
I cannot accept that it is not true.
Ako'y para kung masama loob kay Monsignor Santos. Alam niyo ang hinihingi ko lang kay Mediatrix. Huwag ng shower. Papagyuhin mo ng petal to sa obispong ayaw maniwala.
I sort of felt offended when I heard the news that this was a hoax.
Masakit
Sakit sa amin talaga.
Because my faith is strong that happening is true.
Ari, yung alam namin totoo, ayaw silang maniwala kaya masakit sa amin.
Even if the people will not believe, I believe.
The first thing I told Mama Mary, please let me forget. No? Just please let me forget all these things, especially when I was out already. And just please let me forget. Because I respect what the church declares.
From the beginning, Carmel had its share of detractors, and with the release of the church's official pronouncement, skeptics had a heyday. The general rumor spreading at the time was that the nuns at Carmel were unscrupulous opportunists, conspiring and inventing stories of apparitions to make money for a new chapel.
There was all this ugly talk.
Can you believe na itong mga madring ito ay yapak? Tumutulog ay walang unang kundi kahoy, nagpapakahirap. Itong mga madring ito ay magdadaya. Sasabihin, yung mga flowers na yun yung galing sa itaas man na sila nag-ano. Kayo makakapaniwala ba naman ang ganun?
I could not in my heart accept the fact that, that a hoax could be perpetuated by holy nuns, particularly Carmelite nuns, who are known for their faith.
Hindi napakalaking kasalanan kaya kami nandito para magpakabanal kung gagawa nun, di mas malaking kasalanan namin.
The sister never had an intention of building their chapel.
I would say that as religious, I think, impersonally, I cannot believe that they just want to deceive, just to build a church in their convent, and they will deceive people like that,
There was talk of a blower hidden within the convent, which the nuns purportedly used to create the famous petal showers. Sister Bernadette relates that Mother Marian Cuna suffered especially from this talk.
She had difficulty in the work because I think they were not believing. They thought that she was the mastermind of all those blowers. Because she's a character. She's stronger than Mother Mary Cecilia. So the blame was being put on her.
I was told that the sisters use a blower to blow the petals. But I could not believe it. Being a technical engineer, I know the effect of a blower. One, it makes a lot of noise. So those people there, they will notice the noise and then inquire why. Second, when you blow something, it goes in a curved direction due to force of gravity. But in this case, the petals just happened about 10 feet high and fell directly below. And besides, a big blower cannot reach probably 50 feet. And what happened with Mrs. Quezon was about 70 feet away. How can it reach? So I could not believe.
I can testify. We have no blower. Because I'm doing cleaning the whole, we had only that, that whole cloister, no? And I used to work in the basement. I didn't see any blower.
And did you have electricity in your cells?
None.
In 1948, did you have electricity in your rooms?
When I entered, there was none.
There was no electricity.
None.
So, did you happen to have electric fans?
None. Okay.
So you had no electric fans. Therefore, the theory that there was a blower.
I do not even know what is a blower.
Because in the province, is it not we blow like that? Akala ko yun yung blower, yung pala ganun malaki daw yun.
Retired General Godofredo Juliano, then the commandant of Lipa Air Force Base, attests that the petals could not have been thrown out of an airplane or helicopter, as he would have been aware of the air traffic in the area. He too had witnessed one of the famed petal showers.
But I was not able to see anybody. I, in fact, went also a little beyond back of the side of the chapel to see if any of the windows were open. All the windows were closed. I could not determine the source from where they came from or how they started falling on the courtyard.
Guillermo Milan, then 35, who had fallen away from the church, did more than look. Convinced that the nuns were playing tricks, he clambered up a tree, positioning himself with a Brownie camera next to what he saw was the only open window of the convent's second floor. And a little later, people began to cry, "Shower, shower," necks craning up as a fragrance filled the air.
Dahil salita, ako'y huli ko na ito. Iuhulog, madre. Ako'y talagang ready. Doon sa, ay naku, ang pangyayari ho, talagang ako'y kinikilabutan. Bakit ito? Ang mga tao ay nagtingala. Wala nakakakita. Ako ho nakakita. Mismong isang petal na above the roof. Paano naman gagali sa bintana? Nakumbisi ako ngayon, hindi sa bintana nang gagaling.
Climbing up to the roof, he was amazed to discover not one, but several freshly plucked petals arranged in the form of a rose.
Makakita ka, wala namang maglalagay o maghuhulog sapagkat ako'y nakaabang.
He hurriedly scooped them up, put them in his pocket, and fought off the pilgrims anxiously grabbing at him for a petal.
Siyasakal ako ng tao.
Upon arriving home, and in the presence of 2 reporters,
dahan-dahan kong binuksan.
He discovered that the petals he had so zealously hoarded had disappeared from his pocket, and only one remained.
Nawala yung maraming nilagay ko eh. Yung pumatak na isa ang naroon.
And so began a change of heart.
Di nga ho, ako'y parang na-convert.
He ceased his nightly drinking bouts and started to help the nuns distribute the water.
Ang pakiramdam ko, nakipirmi ako'y magaan na yung hanggang sa ako nag-aral na rosary. Hanggang ngayon ho, ang rosary hindi ko nakakalimutan. At before going to bed every night, ang Blessed Virgin ho, meron akong devotion sa Blessed Virgin. At nung ako'y nandito, nung ako'y makonvert na, lahat ho ng aking problem na mapakabibigat, solved.
Witnesses were also at a loss to explain how the petal's vertical trajectory could be maintained despite strong winds blowing across the courtyard. The images found on the petals also mystified many. Detractors, however, said that the nuns had impressed images onto the petals before throwing or blowing them down.
The person who told me about all this was a member of the commission, a scientist, Dr. Kisumbing at the time. He was director of the Bureau of Science. And he told me about how all this whole thing was a hoax, it was fake, that some unseen hand or hands had, imprinted this outline of the Virgin on each of the petals with painstaking patience, I imagine.
Dr. Kisumbing's declaration that these petals were earthly and not heavenly ones elicited comment from some newspaper columnists who questioned his expertise by asking if he had ever had occasion to examine any petals that had originated from heaven. Despite what seems to be a lack of hard evidence or logical basis, the hoax theory has remained remarkably resilient over the years. And today, the dominant impression many have of Lipa is that of the nuns and their infamous blower. To this day, a number of journalists continue to propagate this theory without, it seems, any effort to check out the facts, irresponsibly repeating or culling from previously published misinformed reports. Without benefit of a thorough investigation, rumor was printed, then published as fact. And it is an outrage that no one ever thought to inquire if, in 1948, in an area laid waste by the devastation of World War II, the Discalced Carmelites, sworn to poverty, had the electricity or space required to operate a gigantic machine capable of blowing rose petals across a courtyard and several hundred meters into the sky.
The lady wand of persecution, and eerily enough, all those associated with Carmel were vilified and made to suffer. Stringent sanctions were imposed upon the community at Lipa.
Yeah, our vows were, were delayed. We could not make our perpetual vows. Several of us were scheduled already, but we could not make it because everything has been cancelled. It took years. It seems I don't remember, but it seems 1953 only, something like that, or 54. Yeah. And also the simple professions of the sisters and the clothings of the sisters were delayed. And then aside from that, we could not receive aspirants.
The files of the correspondence between the new prioress and the diocesan administrator bears this out. And not only were the doors of Lipa Carmel ordered closed to applicants for the religious life, but also, despite repeated pleas, to hired help and any outside assistance. It is also curious that in several chancery records documenting the history of the Diocese of Lipa, all evidence of the existence of the Carmel community has disappeared, and it is not even listed among the religious congregations residing in the area. The nuns were constantly berated by priests who came to Carmel to lecture and scold them for their alleged misdeeds.
I remember one of them when he came, and then we served him, no? But that was already after that. He said, "Oh, you see, you have plenty of things to serve because you really made money, and you bought all this with that money that you fooled the people."
It is humiliating because to be told that you are the dishonor of the order or of the church like that.
For a long time, Sister Elizabeth single-handedly supported the entire community through begging and was solely responsible for all of Carmel's external needs. She recalls that it was a very painful time, for she would be sneered and laughed at as she went about her duties in the outside world.
I had to run here and run there, go to the town, and then yung sinabi na, kami daw lahat ang nag-invento, nagpayaman daw kami, masakit.
Teresing subsequently left Carmel in 1951. She had been asked to do so, purportedly because she had not completed the residency required of a novice due to her frequent sessions with the commission at UST. However, instead of sending her away, Mamer, one of the foundresses of Lipa Carmel, instructed her to leave of her own volition, as this would enable her to return.
Hindi ako makatulog. Yak ako nang iyak sa convent, no? And then I left. I went to my parents.
After 2 weeks, she thought of paying a courtesy visit to the papal nuncio, Monsignor Bagnozzi.
So I went up and I was made to wait for half an hour there. Then when he came out of the door to see me, I stood up and I was going to kiss the ring. He did not want to give his hand, no. And then I said, Your Reverence, I said, I just came here to let you know that I left Carmel for treatment, no. And he drove me away. He said, "You little devil," he told me, "you better get out of my place." He said that. Then I knelt again, and I said, "Please give me your blessing." He did not give me my blessing. He did not give me any blessing at all. So when I heard that, he shouted at me and nearly pushed me out of the door. Because hindi na lang balik. All for Mama Mary na lang. And my intention was very good. Parang just out of courtesy, no? Just to let him know that I was out. So, umalis ako. And then when I went home, I was crying.
She told Cardinal Santos about it, and in the light of his denial of the authenticity of the events, his alleged reply gives one pause.
Sabi niya talagang, totoo yata yung sinabi ng mahalabiran that you will be suffering up to the end of your life.
The same might well have been said for the main witnesses of the events at Lipa, And yet, despite the deep tragedy that marked their lives, in utter obedience, they never made any official statements, only confiding to very close friends their belief in the apparitions at Lipa. However, those who had given the orders have passed away, and the rule of silence no longer applies. Nonetheless, we sought and secured Archbishop Caviola's approval for the interview with the Carmelites of Lipa.
Bishop Versosa stayed on in the old Palacio at Lipa until the end of his term, then joined Monsignor Oviar for a time in Lucena before returning to his hometown in Vigan to die. Sister Bernadette recounts that Mother Marian Cuna remembered the day the bishop came to say goodbye to the community at Carmel before leaving for Vigan.
He could not tell them that he was leaving, but she told me that he was crying, and the only thing that he said was, in patria, in heaven.
Monsignor Gregorio Salvatus, Versosa's secretary in Vigan for 27 months, described the aging bishop as a broken man.
A sickly old man, nervous, he was depressed, but he never complained.
To his dying day, the bishop was said to have treasured a replica of the statue of the mediatrix of all grace.
This is what he told me, that he didn't like to dispose of the image of the Virgin in his baptistry. It just remained there.
Bishop Pedernal opines that Monsignor Oviar was also thought to have been party to the nuns' alleged scheme, and this was perhaps the reason for his removal as auxiliary bishop of Lipa, and more importantly, what kept him for so many years from his position.
It had puzzled much the hierarchy, because the hierarchy is very much aware of the good things and everything, his holiness of life and the activities and the growth of in the diocese. You know? I remember 1 year, or not even less than 1 year before he became ordinary, the late Archbishop Lino Gonzaga. You know? He was then the president of the Bishops' Conference. I was already bishop. And one time he cornered me there in Baguio. He said, "What do you know about this? Why is Bishop of Biar until now, after 3 petitions of the whole hierarchy of the Philippines, asking the Holy Father to appoint him as Bishop of Lucena, not just as apostolic administrator? Can you tell me something, enlighten me, why?" So he said, "You tell me, if Cardinal is the one that is blocking, are you willing to come with me to Rome, personally to the Holy Father? Are you ready to tell the Holy Father everything you know about this, what happened, why?" "Yes," I said, "I'm willing to go." But you know, after that talk of us, after 1 week, it came out the appointment as ordinary of the Senate. Hindi na natuloy yun.
He was always telling me that he is fully convinced that there was an apparition. Whether he was saying that's genuine, was really miraculous, the way shower of petals. The only thing that he lamented was that the shower of petals was, for a very immediate, was being commercialized. And there were fake petals that were being distributed. He hoped that it will be reopened.
It is curious that Oviar was later to found a religious order which he named the Missionary Catechists of St. Therese. Therese of Lisieux, or the Carmelite nun called Therese of the Child Jesus, is also popularly known as the Little Flower, and is the saint for whom Teresita Castillo was named, for her mother had made a novena to this saint in the hopes of begetting another daughter. Teresine claims that the Little Flower had at times accompanied the Virgin in her visits to Carmel, and had even greeted the novice on her feast day. This saint is commonly associated with roses. In fact, the church beside the Generalate in Rome of the Carmelite Fathers contains an effigy of the body of Saint Therese, and in the glass case is a copy of her writings, and above it the words, "From the heavens I will let fall a shower of roses." The headquarters of the Missionary Catechists of St. Therese in Quezon Province includes a museum and shrine erected in the memory of Bishop Oviar, and his loving testimony of how highly he was regarded by his priests, parishioners, and missionaries. It is said that favors have been granted and miraculous healings occurred to those who have asked his intercession or prayed at his tomb. At present, there is a movement underway that seeks to present his case to the causes of saints.
Mother Cecilia stayed at Haro for 13 years and was brought back to Lipa only on March 14, 1963. She spoke very rarely on the apparitions, but one of the nuns report that she had indicated that when she died, everything would come to light. According to Mother Amy, who was prioress at the time of her death, Mother Cecilia must have had a premonition of this, for she asked permission to go, in other words, to die, in order to hasten the vindication of Mary, mediatrix of all grace. Shortly afterwards, on December 13, 1982, she fell from the stairs.
It was the staircase of the novices. We were farther in the recreation of the community. And they heard a big noise, and it was Mother Mary Cecilia. She was lying down on the floor. She struck her head on the windowsill, then from the windowsill to the cement floor, and she was bleeding very much. But she was still conscious. When we brought her up, she was still talking. So I think she said only, "It's painful," I think, like that only. And then she was brought to the infirmary, and we called for the priest for the last anointing. And then she was brought to the hospital. But she was already unconscious when she was brought to the hospital. And that evening she died.
A week before her death, however, Mother Cecilia telephoned Teresing, requesting her to come to Lipa as she had something very important to say. But Teresing was bedridden with fever and asked what it was, as she could not come immediately.
Nagkahint lang ako dyan nung sinabi niya na, do you know that Mama Mary is so beautiful, no? Mother, sabi ko, how did you see? Did you see her? I was in the telephone. No. Naku, iniba na naman ang istorya. Ganun nakakabigla ba siya?
Teresing had suspected that Mother Cecilia had seen the Virgin, and on one other occasion had questioned the prioress about this, mentioning that a younger Vietnamese sister had caught her in the hermitage conversing and laughing before the image.
I was telling her, oh, siguro talaga, you are seeing Mama Mary. Sabi ko, and I'll be very happy. Sabi ko, I'll be very, very happy. Sabi ko, ganoon. Change na naman ang conversation.
Sister Bernadette recalls an equally intriguing conversation she had with the prioress. This conversation had taken place in front of the statue of the mediatrix.
She said that this statue, she's already 18, she looks 18, and this statue, she looks 18, but in reality, she looks only 15 years old.
Sister Bernadette regrets that she did not pursue this conversation, for it had certainly occurred to her at the time that